Hello, lovers, and welcome to Velvet Tales of Love and Longing, where love gets real and the stories hit deep. If you're a hopeless romantic searching for passion, heartbreak, and that undeniable chemistry that makes you believe in second chances, you found your spot. But before we dive in, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. It keeps the love alive and lets these stories reach more hearts. So, grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into the twists and turns of love because every heartbeat tells a story. And tonight, it's one you won't forget. The Proposal, Part 3, Elise and Malik's Story. Chapter 12, Sunrise Confession. The next morning, Elise was careful as she slipped out of bed, making sure not to wake Malik. She kissed his forehead and left a note on his pillow. She had to go home, but that choice didn't come easily. Malik had given her the sweetest words any man had ever spoken. For that alone, he deserved a compassionate goodbye. Once she reached her car, tears came, heavy, hot. She let them fall freely because she knew that would be the last time she saw Malik. He had broken their agreement. And if things got messy, she had promised herself she would leave. By the time she arrived home, the sun had risen, casting golden light through the wide windows of her sprawling vintage house. The home was so large, only natural light could truly illuminate its grand spaces. She always kept the curtains open. There was no need for privacy when the nearest neighbor lived nearly 10 miles away. No peeping Toms, no nosy eyes, just sunlight spilling into every corner of her secluded castle. They had lived a very comfortable life, thanks to David's tireless work. For 25 years, Elise and their children never lacked a thing. All three kids moved out by the age of 18, indulging in expensive college educations, off campus lofts, unlimited credit cards for expenses, and fully paid tuition. Elise's own business ventures, her art gallery, home decor projects, and now thriving handbag brand had all been generously funded as well. David hadn't always been present, but he had provided. He took pride in being able to say his wife was kept. Though Elise was anything but lazy, she appreciated how he valued being a provider, even if affection had faded over the years. He had once been distant and tender, but over time, the tenderness dissolved. Still, she stayed. Elise walked over to the fireplace and smiled faintly at the frames lining the mantel. 25 vow renewal ceremonies, one for each year. Everyone a grand affair, full of friends, music, laughter, and each year for one night, David touched her like he used to. It always gave her hope. She picked up the photo from last year's ceremony just as she heard footsteps descending the stairs. David. He walked behind her and rubbed her shoulders, pressing a kiss to her cheek. Long night at the gallery? He asked. Yes, Elise replied, startled. So much paperwork for the new artist being onboarded. She faked a yawn. I can ask Tilly to come help you sort it all out. I missed your beautiful face last night. He gently moved her hair to one side and kissed her neck. David hadn't done that in years. And her body responded, sharply. The places Malik had touched, kissed, claimed, they awakened for David. What's this about? She asked, her back arching slightly as the heat rushed through her. I just told you, he said, slipping her dress down. That morning, they made love on the couch, like they did when they were younger. David touched her like a man starved for her, and Elise didn't understand what had ignited this hunger. Afterward, they sat in silence, both naked. The scent of their bodies mingled in the air, perfumed a passion she used to call it. She had missed it. The sunrise painted them in golden hues. David reached for her, sensing her quiet confusion. I just wanted you to feel like mine for once, he said, taking the time to kiss each of her fingers. Why now? She asked. Because I found out I can retire early, he said. We got an offer on the firm, enough to set us up for life. He looked into her eyes, voice thick with emotion. And I started thinking about what you said, that we let time dull the pulse of our passion. I want to live out my last days making love to you. You were the reason I worked so hard, Elise, and I can't afford to lose you. Not now, not ever. Tears welled in Elise's eyes. She had longed to hear these words, but she had already indulged in the poetic fire Malik offered her. David brushed her hair from her face and gently cupped her cheek. What is it? He asked softly, sensing the weight behind her silence. He sat in front of her, searching her eyes for a flicker of hope, for some sign that she still wanted him. I'm ready to give you everything you've ever asked for, he said, his voice low with sincerity. I know I've seemed cold, distant, but I swear, from this moment on, things will be different. He paused, his thumb grazing her skin. Just tell me it's not too late, my love. Elise closed her eyes, leaned into his touch, and kissed his palm. It's never too late for us, she whispered. But as David pulled her close again, Elise knew she had work to do. Traces of Malik lingered in her phone, on her skin, and buried deep in her heart. If she planned to truly move forward with David, she would have to let all of that go. Every piece. Chapter 13. The Canvas She Ruined. Malik destroyed every canvas he'd worked on since meeting Elise. Each one held pieces of her laugh in the brushstrokes, her hips in the curves, her presence in the colors. He couldn't stand the sight of them now. The silence in his loft felt heavier than usual, the emptiness echoing the hole she left behind. It had been weeks since he woke up to the sweetest goodbye he'd ever received. A letter sealed with a red lipstick kiss, a ghost of her lips pressed to paper, what he once kissed so freely. Now only a shadow he grieved. The words were tender, full of regret, but they only fueled the storm inside him. She had asked him to act, to show up with fire in his voice and longing in his touch, but the kind of heat she craved could only come from a man who needed a woman the way he had come to need her. In the moment he surrendered, gave in to the very words she had begged to hear, she let him go. How was that fair? But she had warned him. She wasn't offering fairness. Yes, she had asked him to pretend. But deep down, she knew the passion between them couldn't be faked, especially not by a man like Malik. The heat they shared was real, even if she wanted him to keep up the act just to make her feel safe. But what about him? For her, believing it was all a performance eased her guilt and let her live in two separate worlds. She had asked for a show, a pretend falling in love. Then she walked away the moment the act became real. What made it worse was that she saw him, really saw him, the way no other woman ever had. Elise read him like a private journal instinctively. She could feel his moods before he named them, recognize his rage as misplaced passion, and never judge him for his chaos. His failed marriages, his erratic temperaments, she understood it all. She even celebrated it. Elise didn't flinch when he spiraled. She stayed until she didn't. And that's what made being thrown away hurt the most. He remembered how her body trembled when he asked her to stay, how she agreed with tears in her eyes, and still, the next morning she was gone. No word, no trace. When he called to find her, the call didn't even go through. She had blocked him. It didn't take Malik long to piece together what had happened. David, the puppet master in his tailored suit had woven his web. Malik could see it all clearly now. David's whispered promises of stability, the subtle guilt that must have pulled her back home. Malik spent days tortured in his loft, hoping she would return. But as reality sank in, his anger began to shift, hardening into resolve. He wasn't just going to wait anymore. Now he was ready to fight for her love. He opened his laptop and began digging. Elise may have blocked him, but she had left behind breadcrumbs. Her gallery's website, their vow renewal photos on public pages, articles praising her handbag business, a perfect life from the outside. But Malik knew better. He had seen the cracks in her, tasted the ache in her voice when she talked about lost time and empty beds. Then something clicked. He recognized David. His smug face had flashed on Elise's phone once when they were together. And now, staring at his LinkedIn photo, Malik realized why it bothered him. David had been his classmate in college, the smooth talking finance guy who always wore a suit to class, while Malik was just trying to keep paint off his clothes. They hadn't been close, but they ran in the same ambitious circles. The difference was David chose power, Malik chose passion. And now, they were about to clash. He scrolled through David's online presence, interviews, firm updates, nonprofit donations. Squeaky clean. Too clean. Elise's name appeared next to his in most searches, a testament to their picture perfect empire. Malik gritted his teeth. If I could get her into my bed, I can get back into her heart. And if she still felt him, really felt him, this wouldn't be hard. He drafted a message to David on LinkedIn. Hey, long time. Let's catch up. Lunch on me. David replied within the hour, warm, eager, even offered to pay. That night, Malik sat hunched over his laptop, the screen glowing in the dim loft. His usual weapon, words, his way of seduction, failed him as he struggled to develop a plan. There was no way to confront David without sounding unhinged, so he had to find another approach, a backup plan. One he'd only use if David tried to involve Elise. This wasn't about her anymore. This was a man-to-man conversation, and Malik wasn't above getting dirty for the woman who knew the language of his soul. Chapter 14, The Lunch Trap. David had arrived early. He texted Malik to let him know he couldn't stay long, saying he had a late lunch plan with his wife, Elise. Malik shuddered at the thought of them dining together, smiling, touching, pretending. He'd parked across the street for nearly 20 minutes, watching David through the restaurant's front windows. The bastard had spent most of the time scrolling through the very album that set Malik's blood on fire. 25 smug little vow renewal photos. Elise glowing in a series of elegant gowns, David beside her with that too tight smile. Malik had studied those photos so obsessively that he could recall them backward, starting from the stiff, pose shots all the way to the one where her eyes still held something real. A hostess greeted him with a soft smile as he stepped through the doors. Reservations under David Lee? Malik said, adjusting the sleek cuffs of his black jacket. She guided him to the booth, the same booth he'd watched from the car. David was already seated, looking far too pleased. Malik, it's so good to see you. Man, you've been doing pretty well for yourself, David said, raising for a hug. Yeah, thanks. I see you've been lucky in business, even luckier in love. I hear. Malik replied as they embraced. Smoothly, he slipped the slim tracker into David's coat pocket. They slid into the booth, and David, beaming, wasted no time pulling out his phone. Yes, my love, Elise. He practically gleamed, swiping through the same album he'd just viewed alone. He handed Malik the phone to scroll freely. She actually owns a gallery now. If you're looking for a space to sell your art, I could get you her contact. She's got an eye. Malik's jaw clenched. Elise had once said David called her design taste too much. Oh, nah, I'm good, Malik said with a calm smile, handing the phone back. I'm independent. My online profile moves pieces on its own these days, but thanks anyway. She is beautiful. There was a moment of silence, thick, unsettling. David broke it. What about you? Any special women in your life? Malik chuckled lightly. Yeah, there's one, but she's married. David stiffened. The change was slight, but Malik caught it like a hawk. Well, that's complicated, David said, face tightening. It is, Malik said, his voice lower now. Her husband works a lot. She got lonely. Women need attention, and he forgot that. She ended up in my yard, and we've been inseparable ever since. David's eyes flinched. He reached for his water. You work a lot, don't you, David? Malik asked, sipping his coffee casually. I did, David said, adjusting his posture. Sold my firm a few weeks ago. Me and Elise were solid. It's hard to hear about women betraying their men like that, though. I feel bad for that guy. Malik smirked through a bite of his Caesar salad. Yeah, most of them don't even know until she's packing her bag and walking out the door. David stared at him. What can I do for you, Malik? He said flatly, trying to steer the conversation away from the fog of infidelity. Not many of us brothers at SFSU back then. Figured you'd be a good contact to have. Malik reached out, patted his shoulder. David relaxed a bit and reached into his wallet. Of course. Here's my card. Anything you need, let me know. Just as he stood, Elise's name lit up on his phone. One more thing, Malik said quickly, ensuring David didn't answer. I know you said you sold your firm, but I've been getting electronic payments for my art, and I think someone's skimming off the top. I could use a light audit. Think you can help? Sure, David said, phone still buzzing in his hand. Bottom of the card, Tilly, my assistant. Send her your info. She'll book something for us. Think we could meet at my place, Malik added. With my name out there, I'd rather not get recognized while we're going over my personal finances. No problem. Coordinate with Tilly. I've got to run, David said, already turning away. Malik sat back, watching David leave in a hurry, ignoring Elise's third call. He stirred his coffee, pulled out his phone, and opened the tracking app. Target acquired. Nevins. Nevins? Elise brought him there? Their spot. By the time Malik arrived, he was parked, hidden. From the sidewalk, he peered through the velvet curtains and gold framed windows of Nevins. They were there, Elise and David, a beautiful lie and its willing believer. She sat across from him, arms crossed, lips pursed in that way she did when irritated. A small crease formed above her left brow, the crease that used to deepen when Malik canceled or came late. He'd kissed it once to make it vanish. David looked agitated, gesturing with sharp hands and tense shoulders. Words flew from his mouth like darts, but Elise didn't flinch. The first half of dinner was an argument. The second half, reconciliation. Malik watched Elise scoot closer, watched her nudge David playfully, her arms wrapped around his neck as she whispered something and kissed him deeply. Malik read her lips as they shaped the words, I love you. They paid and left the restaurant like teenagers drunk on hormones. Malik was already behind the wheel when they came out. He followed them, quietly, obsessively, like a shadow laced in heartbreak. Their home was exactly as Elise had described it. All black, long driveway, vines curling around the columns, and in the moonlight from the cracked angle of Malik's parked car, he saw them making love. No lights, just moonbeams kissing Elise's mahogany skin. But David didn't know how to handle her. He grabbed her like property, moved her like a possession. No grace, no worship, nothing like Malik. She had once said Malik's touch felt like poetry written with fingertips. Now she was in a performance written in brute force. Malik couldn't watch anymore. He turned the key and drove off into the night, fury burning beneath his skin. The next part of his plan would require precision and patience. Chapter 15. Thanks for nothing. You've been busy, David muttered, flipping through the digital file of Malik's transactions. His eyes widened. This could take months to audit. You've got almost 1 million transactions for your art alone. He rubbed his temples, clearly overwhelmed. I really appreciate you doing this for me, Malik said smoothly, watching David from across the room. I make good money, but I live off my commissions. No way I could afford to hire a full-blown financial firm right now. That was a lie, of course. Malik made what most people earned in a year off a single piece. But this wasn't about money. It was about control. David nodded slowly. You're doing well for yourself. But yeah, trust is everything when it comes to finances. I get it. I'm free every day after 4. That's if you're trying to rush this and get it wrapped up by the end of the month, Malik offered, leaning back casually. David went silent, staring into the distance, clearly calculating. I'll talk to my wife about it, he finally said, and get back to you on my availability. Malik turned slightly in his chair, letting out a short snicker. David glanced up. What? Oh, nothing, Malik said, rising and walking toward the fridge. Y'all got that kind of marriage, I see. David's brows drew together, confused and insulted. What's that supposed to mean? Malik poured ice into his glass and splashed in a heavy shot of dark liquor. He motioned the bottle toward David, who wordlessly held out his glass. I'm just saying, you're a businessman. Looks bad for business to ask permission, Malik said with a crooked smile, watching the flicker of embarrassment cross David's face. But hey, to each his own. David took a long sip, trying to shake the discomfort off. I'll give you a week. I'll get started on the audit and then toss it to my firm. It's the best I can do, considering the volume. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Malik walked over to the corner of his studio, thumbing through a few canvas pieces before pulling one out. He stared at it for a moment, then turned it toward David. It was a vibrant portrait of a woman who looked eerily like Elise. Same mouth, same bone structure, but with an exaggerated afro made of bold paint strokes lined and lips bursting with neon pink. He signed the corner in thick Sharpie, boxed it carefully, and handed it to David. Is your wife a fan? Maybe she like a signed piece. David's eyes lit up as he took the box. Man, this is worth a small fortune. She's gonna love it. Malik smiled, slow and knowing, as David stood to leave. They hugged at the door briefly. Appreciate you, David said. I'll be in touch. As the door shut behind him, Malik's expression shifted into something colder, calculated. Everything was going according to plan. He sipped his drink and stared out the window. After a week of David working late, Elise would start to feel that familiar loneliness, and when she did, Malik would be right there, waiting. Chapter 16. The Art of Pretending. Like clockwork, Elise called David less than a week later. David postponed their week-long audit due to family issues, but Malik knew the truth. Elise had seen the painting and panicked just as he'd expected. Whatever you're trying to do, it won't work, she said, trying to sound composed, but Malik heard the tremble beneath that sweet, practiced calm she wore like a mask. Who is this? He asked, voice smooth, feigning confusion, pretending not to recognize the woman whose voice once made his knees buckle. You know who this is, Malik. You had no right to contact my husband. She was clearly angry, but her tone never spiked. You'll have to be more specific, he replied dryly. I come into contact with countless women daily. You undo me, Elise. I don't ever want another man to touch you the way I touch you. God, Elise, I love you. She mimicked his voice, quoting words he'd once whispered while they made love. Oh, okay, no need to get explicit, he said coolly. I got the picture. What can I do for you, Elise? That's cute. Pretending like you don't recognize the voice of the woman you begged to run away with you less than 2 months ago. It's also sad, considering I know how lonely you truly are. I haven't got much time to chat, Elise. What can I do for you? Her callousness caught him off guard. He had given her so much ammunition, assuming she'd never use it. But here they were. You're pathetic. A 3-time divorcee, so screwed in the head only a canvas could ever fall in love with you. Leave my family alone or I'll have you arrested. For what, dear? He asked, still playing dumb. Her fury stung, but this fire in her, it turned him on. He wanted to see just how far she'd go. The painting! She finally screamed. You mean the gift I gave an old college buddy for helping with my finances? He replied casually. He bragged about his beautiful wife all night, so I thought I'd thank him with a painting. Didn't know that was a crime. College buddy? Elise repeated, her voice softening just slightly. Yeah, the guy doing my audit. We went to SFSU together. That's your husband? Wow. Small world. So, you didn't know? She asked, the aggression draining from her tone. No, Elise. How could I have known? Oh, I'm so sorry for the harsh words earlier. I assumed he cut her off. You assumed you were far more important than you truly are, madam. I've already moved on. In fact, I was on my way to help my new lover move in when you called, harassing me. He hated being so cold, but in less than a week, she'd be back in his arms and he'd explain everything. Without another word, he hung up. Chapter 17, The Final Stage. Malik and David worked side by side on the audit. It was easy to see David still enjoyed the thrill of chasing numbers. What started as a 1 week kickoff quickly turned into two, and each day, Elise's calls grew more aggressive. Once Malik overheard David arguing with her in the bathroom about his whereabouts. That was all the confirmation he needed. His plan was working. Elise was unraveling. She hated that David was gone so often, but what tortured her more was knowing he was with Malik. She feared the truth would come out, that they had slept together. The fear was the weapon. Malik had no intention of telling David. He just wanted Elise to believe he might. Payback for ghosting him, blocking his number, and walking away like he meant nothing. She played with his heart. Now he was playing with her head. Earlier that week, Elise had come by the loft, unannounced. I feel so terrible for assuming such horrible things about you, she said, eyes soft with regret. Elise, please, I don't have time for this. Malik replied flatly, feigning disinterest. With women like Elise, indifference was the only thing that made them question themselves. Truly, Malik, I'm sorry. Let me make it up to you, she said, grabbing his coat and pulling him toward the door. This time, she didn't take him to Nevin's. Instead, they went to her gallery, where she'd arranged for the in-house chef to prepare a private dinner. She was hiding him, but he could tell she missed him. The way she talked endlessly, laughed too hard, lingered too long in silence, it all told the same story. When the conversation turned toward their breakup, Malik pretended not to remember, but Elise pressed forward, giving away more than she ever had. I'm sorry for how it ended. It wasn't an easy choice. The truth is, we really don't know each other. I'm sure you realized that after it was over. Yes, I think everything happens for a reason, he said with a cool detachment. She smiled, but sadness shimmered behind it. Don't think I haven't thought about you. What we had, it was special. You're special, she whispered, touching his shoulder. Their eyes locked. Then came the kiss. Hungry, unplanned, electric. The chef quietly closed the doors. Not here, Elise gasped as Malik reached beneath her dress. They raced back to his loft, where they made love again and again. Her body felt just as warm and inviting as he remembered. He let himself enjoy her, but he had to keep his head. This was still the game. Getting carried away now would mean losing. Perfume de passion, Elise murmured, inhaling the air between them like it was sacred. What's Perfume de passion, Malik asked, still breathless. It's a scent only two lovers can manufacture, with their heat, lust, and moisture, she replied, mounting him again, ready for another round. But Malik stopped her. My girlfriend will be here any minute, he said coldly, getting dressed. He tossed her clothes onto the couch without looking her in the eyes. Before she could respond, he reached into her blazer and slipped the gold pendant David had given her back into his pocket. Time to go, he said, holding the door open. Elise stood frozen for a moment, blinking through shock. Then she left without a word. As the door slammed shut, Malik let out a raw, frustrated scream. Why did it have to be like this? She should have stayed. They could have been together forever, but now he had to make her feel like nothing more than a discarded whore, when in truth, she was the woman he loved more than anything. He drank through the night, sitting in the dark with the pendant in his palm, preparing for the next phase, the phase where he'd no longer need to pretend, the final stage. Chapter 18, 12th Message. By the third week of working side by side with David, Elise's calls had stopped coming to him entirely. Now they came for Malik. Non-stop. His phone buzzed across the desk in rhythmic, desperate intervals, her name lighting up the screen again and again. You need to take that? David asked, trying to sound casual. Someone really wants to talk to you. He nudged Malik with a sly grin, the kind men use when they think they figured out the game. No, Malik replied coolly, slipping the phone back into his pocket. Business comes first. David chuckled, but the edge in his smile didn't reach his eyes. Every few minutes, he checked his own phone, flicking his screen, refreshing messages, waiting for Elise. She never called, and she never responded. Eventually, he gave in and sent one more text. Thinking of you. Read. No reply. Malik watched it all unfold with a dark satisfaction simmering beneath the surface. For a brief moment, he almost pitied David. Almost. A man like him could never handle a woman like Elise. Women like her needed someone who knew how to punish their rebellion and reward their submission. Someone like him. Later that evening, the office was quiet, just the low hum of fluorescent lights and the ticking of a dusty wall clock. David sat on the couch, scrolling his phone, nervously bouncing his knee. He sent his 12th unanswered message. As he shifted deeper into his seat, he suddenly froze, his fingers brushing against something cold and metallic between the cushions. He pulled it up. A gold pendant. Elise's pendant. His hand shook as it caught the light. Recognition crashed into him like a wave of acid. The same pendant he had given her as a wedding gift. His face contorted. His breath came shallow and fast. Then he snapped. He threw his phone to the side, the device clattering to the floor, and charged at Malik with no warning. The first punch landed hard. Malik didn't see it coming. Then another and another. Fists pummeled his jaw, his ribs, his stomach. One kick knocked the wind out of him and sent him crashing to the ground. Blood poured from his nose and split lip, his face already swollen. David's wedding band, thick, gold, unyielding, cutting to Malik's skin with every hit. A cruel, ironic weapon. When David finally stopped, he staggered backward, chest heaving, his knuckles raw. He leaned against the couch, dazed by his own violence. Malik lay still for a moment, coughing blood, then reached slowly into his coat pocket. David didn't notice until it was too late. With a sudden, precise thrust, Malik drove the sharp, gold pocket knife into David's chest. Their eyes locked. David's wide with shock, Malik's narrowed with fury. He leaned in, twisted the blade hard, deeper, with deliberate cruelty. She's mine now, he growled. He felt David's blood pump in time with his heartbeat until there was no heartbeat left. David's body slumped to the floor, lifeless. His eyes stared blankly at nothing. Malik stepped back, panting, covered in blood. He dropped the knife and screamed, not in grief, but in unfiltered release. It was over. Finally, over. He picked up the phone and dialed 911, forcing a tremble in his voice. Yes, I've been attacked. He wouldn't stop. I had to defend myself. The lie flowed as easily as the blood on the floor. It was simple, yet filthy. Clean, yet buried in layers of deceit. There was no need to explain anything to Elise. The cops already had. Now, Malik wasn't the villain. He was the victim, and everything was falling perfectly into place. Chapter 19. Malik assumed that with the kids, the chaos of the funeral, and the suffocating quiet of widowhood, it would take Elise at least a couple of months before the loneliness set in. He was wrong. The night of the funeral, she texted him, Can I come over? At first, he pretended to hesitate, typing and deleting, crafting a performance. My therapist said I need time, trauma processing, too soon. But she insisted. When she arrived, she didn't say much. She walked in like she was sleepwalking and dropped onto the couch, still in black, her eyes red and swollen. Malik limped slowly across the room, his bruised leg from the fight still tender, though he made sure to exaggerate every grimace, just to earn her pity. She watched him with wide, guilt-ridden eyes. How have you been? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sympathy poured from her gaze, thick, heavy, vulnerable. Malik didn't look at her. Sore, he muttered, voice laced with bitterness. Physically, mentally, spiritually. I feel terrible, she said, her voice cracking. If only I hadn't left my pennant here. If I'd been more careful. None of this. I had to kill a man, Elise, he snapped, turning to her now, eyes sharp, voice low and trembling, with anger. One of the only people who ever showed me kindness in school, because of you. She flinched, shrinking into the couch. Malik, if there's anything I can do, anything to fix this, she was begging, right where he wanted her. Malik buried his face in his hands, rocking slightly, playing the grieving hero, but inside he smiled. He was ready to take off the mask. He looked up slowly, tears glossing his eyes, but they weren't real. Run away with me, Elise. She blinked, stunned. What? Let's leave all this behind, he said, his voice softening, seductive now. No more whispers, no more stares, just us. I love you, Elise. I always have. A beat of silence hung heavy in the room. I I don't know, she whispered, looking away. The kids? My job? This is all happening so fast. He inched closer. We could start over. Somewhere new, you and me. He reached for her hand, gently lacing his fingers through hers. You deserve a man who would kill for you. I already proved that. Her breath hitched. Somewhere inside her, alarms were blaring, but they were drowned out by grief, by guilt, by confusion, and something else, curiosity. She didn't let go of his hand. Malik leaned in, brushing a tear from her cheek. Say yes. She looked into his eyes. Then the camera of her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown caller. Malik didn't notice, but Elise did. She reached for it slowly, but didn't answer. The call ended, and then came the text from an unknown number. He lied. Meet me. Don't trust him. Her heart dropped. Her hand tightened around the phone, knuckles white. Malik tilted his head. Elise, what is it? She looked up, tears back in her eyes, but now her stare was different, harder, smarter. Nothing, she said. Just give me a second to think. If you felt every heartbeat, every tear, and every kiss tonight, don't leave without showing some love. Like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who believes in love's messy, beautiful journey. There's more passion, more heartbreak, and more unforgettable tales coming your way right here on Velvet Tales of Love and Longing. Until next time, keep loving, keep longing, and remember, every heartbeat has a story. Good night, lovers.